Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. After my win in the two-player game against Daniel, I'm now only one step away from winning the group. The game that we are seeing today is a two-player game against Danny Boy, and if I should be able to win it, then it will be guaranteed that I win this group. Danny Boy has lost his two-player games so far, and because of that, he sadly doesn't have any chances any longer to reach the next stage, but that wasn't clear for the most part of the game that we are about to see. For the most part, it was definitely looking like Danny Boy could definitely be a contender for the fight for the first two places. And now, without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. In this game, I am in the second position, and first of all, we are going to take a look at the leaders and wonders. And similarly to the game before, that could potentially be a culture-heavy game, because in the H2 we have Bach and Shakespeare. In H3 we have the Hollywood, and there's also Gandhi. So that is always a combination with some heavy culture leaders, Hollywood and Gandhi, where I don't necessarily want to be in a situation where I have to catch up in the military. So setting up for those culture leaders could be quite important. But we also have some lab leaders in H3 with Bill Gates, Sid Meier, and Marie Curie. There's also Fleming with the Hollywood. So he is also there, and then we also have the Red Cross. In H2 there's the Ocean Liner Service, but no Maria. There is no Suez Canal, but there is James Cook. We have Newton as a strong economic leader, Robespierre, also James Watt is there together with the railroad. We have Forbidden City, we have the Great Wall in Machu Picchu. We have no military action leader in H1, and then we have Columbus, Barbarossa, Eleanor, Isabella, and Nostradamus. Danny Boy is in the first position, and he just goes for Hammurabi. That should be the strongest pick. Hammurabi is definitely quite a strong leader, but if I should decide to go for Caesar, maybe it could also get a little bit dangerous for him. And at the end, I actually made the decision to go for Caesar here. I could also say I maybe just grab the library, because now Danny Boy will get the library for one civil action, which is definitely quite nice for him. But if I just take the library, then there aren't any leaders coming down the row. There are three leaders that are still in the deck, Sun Tzu, Cleopatra, and Aristotle, but I might have to grab those for two civil actions or to wait another turn, and that would, while I take a nice wonder away from Danny Boy, and then no wonder is available for one civil action for him, there would then very likely be no leader available for one civil action for me, and he at least has Hammurabi to make up for maybe paying an additional civil action, so for example taking Stonehenge for two civil actions, or maybe just taking two yellow cards and then taking a wonder at the following turn wouldn't be too bad for him, so I didn't like it to just take the library here. Of course I could also just go for Homer, but then I might have to go for the Stonehenge with him, which is maybe not ideal. In Homer I also don't like too much in two-player games. Maybe if the pyramids would come out, that could work out fine, but at the end I just went for Caesar, because he can be a nice counter against Hammurabi. Maybe I can at least apply a bit of pressure so that he has to be a bit afraid, and then together with Caesar I take this urban growth. Like this, if Danny Boy takes the library for one civil action, then the Stonehenge will be available for one civil action for me, so I hopefully will be able to take a wonder for one civil action at the next turn. I'm actually guaranteed to take a wonder. Only maybe if there's the pyramids, I could potentially decide to wait for the pyramids, but there are no pyramids coming out of the deck. Danny Boy will go for Hammurabi, builds a mine, increases population, takes the library and the urban growth, so that all seems very solid. Then I will go for Caesar, I will go for the Stonehenge. I could potentially also think about maybe waiting for Forbidden City, but I think just taking the Stonehenge now for one civil action is just quite nice. The Forbidden City of course can also be interesting, but I rather just wanted to spend a civil action now already to take a wonder, and the Stonehenge definitely can be quite solid. And then with having the Stonehenge, I rather went for building the mine first instead of building the lab first, because I will get some additional science from the Stonehenge. And also with Shakespeare in the game, and with maybe it being important to set up for him, I also wanted to leave myself open to maybe go for printing presses instead of building the second lab. I draw two aggressions and also the Crusade, so with the two aggressions maybe I will be able to do something with it, but Danny Boy also I think finds a very nice solution or finds a very strong turn for himself. He will just build a second lab, he will grab the monarchy for three civil actions, and he will increase his population, and I think that might be just the right thing to do. An early monarchy revolution with Hammurabi is quite strong, but in this situation it might be even more important, because now he has a very nice way to get his third military action going, and with that it might definitely be a lot harder to maybe pull a double aggression off or something like that, and in general it will be a lot easier for him to defend, so I definitely wasn't happy to see that he gets this early monarchy going, and of course I also would have liked to get it with the Stonehenge, so I think taking it here even for 3 civil action is definitely the right choice. Then it's my turn again. I see the Crusades. I actually will go for Isabella this turn, so I could maybe also say I don't want to cede at all. Felt a little bit bad to not do anything with Caesar, but when I go for Isabella at the moment, then there is no clear indicator who has the better position for military. I at least have the happy face from the Stonehenge, and at least I will have the knowledge about the Crusades, and so there are definitely some reasons to go for seeding, but no, maybe I could have also just passed on the politics phase. The development of markets are revealed. I will take 2 additional food because I was hoping that I maybe can get this printing press at the next turn, and then the more food I have, the better. And no, Danny Boy I thought will very likely do his revolution at his turn, and then I should be able to get the printing press at the next turn. With Danny Boy getting the 3rd military action from the monarchy now, no, I just didn't like it too much to have Caesar. I don't have a lot of events in hand that I can maybe push really a lot. Of course, I might draw one, but Isabella can just give me a little bit of secure economical value, and in this situation, I rather just wanted to switch to Isabella now. If Danny Boy would have still been on 2 military actions, maybe I would have continued with Caesar, but with him now having the option to do a revolution at his next turn, I didn't feel too great about having Caesar any longer, and I just wanted to make a switch to Isabella. And then I built 2 stages of the Stonehenge. Maybe I could have just taken the 2 resources from the development of markets, because now I will increase my population with the last civil action, but then maybe I could have just built even another stage of the Stonehenge, and then I wouldn't have gone into consumption. Maybe that could potentially have been the better decision actually, but no, I rather went for the additional food. It also means that I maybe can get one more population out. Maybe one food could make a difference. And also it could maybe be nice to have a relatively nice way to get out of corruption at the next turn, because after I go for the printing press, which will cost me 3 civil action, it could still be nice to be able to take a card, for example the Engineering Genius, because if I don't take it, then Danny Boy might be able to take it for 1 civil action, and that might actually be helpful to maybe not max out the amount of resources and food that I get here, and instead maybe have an easier way to get out of corruption. And that's also the reason why I don't take the rich land here. Of course, potentially it could be a useful card, but I might really need some civil actions at the next turn. Of course, I could say I take the rich land this turn, and then maybe I go for the printing press at the next turn, don't take the Engineering Genius, but then giving the Engineering Genius for 1 civil action to Danny Boy just felt quite bad, and so I rather wanted to have the civil action at the next turn to take the Engineering Genius. I draw the call to arms, also to historic territory. Maybe with Isabella it could be nice to see the territory into the deck. Danny Boy goes for the monarchy revolution, and with having taken food from the development of markets, he also can get nicely out of corruption with just increasing his population. Now it's my turn, and there are some interesting cards on the row. And if I go for the printing press, I might not be able to go for all of them, because I will be able only to take 1 additional card, so I have to make a decision if I maybe rather want to have the irrigation, or if I maybe want to take the Engineering Genius, like I said in the turn before. So I could of course also think about maybe just finishing Stonehenge, but even then I could increase my population and then maybe just take printing press, Engineering Genius and the irrigation, but it didn't feel too great. I thought it could be nice to just get the printing press going this turn, and so I was willing to miss out on 1 of those cards. I go for 1 printing press. I can use the urban growth, it still gets me out of corruption, and now that I increased the population before, and then with my last civil action I made a decision to take the Engineering Genius. If that Engineering Genius would be discarded, maybe I would rather go for the irrigation, because I can maybe use it in the Stonehenge, but then it's not used to his full effect. Or I can maybe hope to get another wonder, but who knows if I want to go for those wonders. Maybe for the ocean liner service it could be nice, but I thought for myself maybe just having the irrigation could be better, but I just didn't want to give Danny Boy the Engineering Genius for 1 civil action. Now there is no yellow card on the row at the moment that he can take, so maybe he has some issues with spending the civil actions from Hammurabi nicely. And then of course there's the danger that I will now miss out on the second copy of Irrigation, and the danger is actually quite big because Danny Boy has still Hammurabi and the Monarchy, so he can a lot more easily afford to maybe pay extra civil actions to grab the second copy. But at least there's an Ocean Liner service in the game, so if I miss out on the Irrigation, I still have the selective breeding and the Ocean Liner service as options to maybe get more population going. So yeah, that was my turn, and I keep the two events. I wasn't willing to seed because that could just cause corruption issues, and also I wasn't certain yet if I want to seed any of those events. Definitely not a call to arms because I expected Danny Boy to go for Nostradamus now. I draw the inhabited territory, so not a colony for Isabella maybe. Danny Boy will just finish the library, he will take Nostradamus, elect him, and he's willing to take the iron for 2 civil actions here. He could potentially also just wait it for the next turn, but then he maybe has to take alchemy and swordsman, then he can get iron for 1 civil action at the next turn, but yeah, maybe he just didn't want to have both of those cards in hand. And also, actually, he couldn't have taken the iron at the next turn because he wants to grab the Taj Mahal, and of course, then he has to take this iron if he doesn't want to risk missing out on the iron completely. And yeah, he goes for the Taj Mahal. If he goes for some iron production now, the Taj Mahal might definitely be fine, but I also was kind of happy about it in that sense that maybe it will block him from going for an early Ocean Liner service, so that might now be less contested, and so that might also be a benefit for me. Then it's my turn again. I could think about seeding a colony. The problem is Danny Boy would seed now with Nostradamus. He has 3 military actions. He has the library, can keep an additional card in hand. The cartography isn't on the row yet, so I wasn't convinced that Isabella is enough to maybe help me winning this territory, especially with having no colonization cards in hand yet. So I again rather didn't seed at all. This turn I will go for the masonry. I already built 2 stages of the Stonehenge, but I can still use it to at least save 1 civil action, and after doing this population will be happy, and I can also use the masonry to already build this printing press for 1 resource cheaper. And I thought getting this masonry going should be quite nice. In case I go for a lot of urban buildings, it definitely might save me a decent amount of resources. And also if I go for the ocean liner service, for example, or the railroad or something like this, it might help me saving some civil actions. Of course, that might not work as nicely with the engineering genius, but still, then at least it would still save me 1 civil action, and I thought it is worth it to go for the masonry here. I didn't take the knights, but there is another copy to come, and if I would take the knights, the iron would be discarded, and I still wanted to get this iron, because the irrigation will fall down to 2 civil actions for Danny Boy, and he might take it away, and I didn't want to have another game where I miss out on iron and irrigation like in the game against Daniel. I mean, I actually don't know yet if how far the game against Daniel was at this point, if I already knew in the other game that I would miss out on it, but yeah, I ideally don't want to miss out on both of those things, and so I still wanted to have the option to go for iron at the next turn. I still keep both of the colonies. Maybe if I get a cartography or something, it could be interesting to seed those. Danny Boy seeds, and the development of politics is revealed, so some additional cards are drawn. I draw another tactic, so I have now a tactic for infantry units and for cavalry units, also the immigration and the new deposits. Danny Boy will start going for iron this turn, and then he is willing to take the irrigation for 2 civil actions. At least it's maybe a little bit costly for him, but he doesn't have that much else to do anyway, so yeah, definitely it should be the right decision to take it. And then he also takes the knights. It's my turn. I could potentially seed again, but I don't have a free population, and I thought it might be nice to maybe not push the attack too quickly. I still wasn't convinced about those colonies, new deposits. Could be nice for both of us. Immigration, again, Danny Boy's Nostradamus, could see it. Maybe we'll go for some dramas or something like this, so I just skipped in the politics phase. And then I also wanted to go get my iron production going. I can go for 1 upgrade. I could now just increase my population, but I thought having this cultural heritage might be quite nice. Maybe it will help me getting a government form going 1 turn earlier. And so I was willing to spend 1 civil action for that, and otherwise Danny Boy might be able to get breakthrough and a cultural heritage, and having that much additional science available might be quite helpful for him. I reveal the phalanx tactic this turn because now we are still in H1, so I might be able to save some military actions. I then actually will discard the fighting band, which maybe is a mistake, but there is a second copy of knights coming down the road. Danny Boy has already 1 copy, and so I was At the end, I rather wanted to have this tactic, but maybe I could also just reveal the fighting band, or I could just keep the other tactic in hand then. It was a relatively close decision for me at the end. I just revealed the phalanx tactic so that I maybe still have a shot to nicely fight for those strength events. I immediately redraw the legion, so in case I don't want to go for cavalry units, I still have a tactic now in hand. Danny Boy opens the development of settlement, then he will go for one more upgrade, grabs the breakthrough, grabs the drama for 2 civil actions, so he also wants to be prepared for some culture leaders. With that he can maybe nicely go for Bach, and maybe also didn't want to leave the drama for me, even though in this situation I think the drama is not as important as in the game against Daniel, because here I have some iron production going, and just going for operas will also work perfectly fine for me. And then he will already develop the irrigation, and at the next turn he can maybe continue going for some upgrades, could potentially even go for 1 iron and 2 irrigation upgrades. And at my turn we can see something interesting. H2 will start, and the first card of H2 will actually be the Conmon, which is quite nice. It will also mean that I have to take it for 3 civil action now, which will cause me some issues. But still, I was definitely more happy about it, because that is just very nice, being able to get this boost now. I'm still on despotism with 4 civil and 2 military actions, so I thought that I definitely have to take the Conmon for 3 civil actions here. The question is what to do with the last civil action. I could potentially get out of corruption if I either increase my population, and then I could build a warrior. And then I could maybe think about doing just a revolution at the next turn. I also thought about just building a 4th iron mine here, getting a nice production going, and then I also get out of corruption this turn and could maybe do a revolution at the next turn. And but those revolutions are a bit tricky, because if there's an ocean liner service or selective breeding, I probably want to go for those. And so at the end I just wanted to make sure that I can go for the Conmon actually at the next turn already, and I just built the 2nd lab. It's maybe not ideal, because with having those printing presses I maybe rather want to build another printing press as soon as I have the constitutional monarchy out. But I just wanted to have the option to get the constitutional monarchy out peacefully the next turn with playing the cultural heritage. That will be possible, and just alone for that I was willing to build the 2nd lab now. And maybe at some point I can then delete it again and use it for something else, but at least maybe it will produce me a bit of science. And having corruption is maybe hopefully also not too bad, because I still have a bunch of resource saved up. At the next turn I can maybe continue with upgrading both of the mines. This turn I discarded a colony finally and kept a tactic in hand. I also draw 1 more colonization card and the Cold War. Danny Boy again seeds, and the development of warfare is revealed. I don't have a free population, so I won't be able to take that. Danny Boy will take the free warrior, and as we can see, both of the culture leaders are on the row, Shakespeare and Bach, and Danny Boy is willing to take Bach for 3 civil actions. And I think it's probably a good decision to do this, because the nice thing about having those printing presses is that I am prepared for Bach and for Shakespeare. Danny Boy is only really nicely prepared for Bach, for both of those culture leaders, from both of those culture leaders. So in case he wouldn't have taken any of those cards, then while maybe Shakespeare could potentially be even nicer, I probably would have just taken Bach, and then Danny Boy maybe can make Shakespeare work in case he gets the journalism, but he doesn't know this if he will get it, and even if he gets it, then he would need a lot of free population. So I think Bach just works a lot easier for him. If he doesn't take him, I maybe would have taken him away, and so it might be worth it here for him to take Bach for 3 civil actions, and then Danny Boy will upgrade 1 mine and will increase his population. Interestingly, instead of going for the irrigation upgrade, I thought that maybe there could potentially be rats in there, so I was a bit afraid of that. I have 7 food saved up, so I have to be a little bit careful about that. And then Danny Boy will reveal the fighting band tactic is now at 3 strength. The good thing now is I don't have to take Shakespeare this turn, I can just take him at the next turn, so I can then take my leader for 1 civil action. That's the luxury of being prepared for both of those leaders. And then this turn I can play the Cultural Heritage, so that card indeed enabled me now to go for a government farm one turn earlier. I can develop the Constitutional Monarchy. I can go for one iron upgrade. I kinda have to increase my population 2 times. Even if I would go for one more iron upgrade, it would not be enough to get me out of corruption. And then there are some cards that I could potentially take. I can go for one more iron upgrade. I can increase my population. And yeah, I at the end went for upgrading my mine and taking the breakthrough. I think having the breakthrough is quite nice. After going for the Conmon, I don't have the most science saved up, so I think getting science from breakthrough will be quite helpful. I don't really need the resource from the rich land. The Code of Laws could be nice, but I might also need my science for something else, for military technology, for opera, for selective breeding. So I wasn't really willing to pay civil actions for that here. Maybe it could still be nice to have it at some point, but I didn't want to miss out on an upgrade for that. Now, of course, I am potentially vulnerable for the reds, and with planning to go for Shakespeare, it might be quite bad getting hit by that. But I didn't really plan on seeding at the moment. I would lose potentially to the Crusades, and so only one event will be revealed before my turn. Maybe even no event if Danny Boy has no nice event to seed, and so I was hoping that the chance that reds are revealed is not that high. And with that, I was rather willing to get this additional upgrade going earlier. I like this also let the opera stay in 3 civil actions. It's maybe not that important, anyway it's the drama anyway. Maybe he also just rather wants to go for the dramas. Those are definitely quite a bit cheaper. But maybe you would take it away, and if the second copy of opera is late, then it could take me quite a while until I can pull off some culture reduction. So yeah, I still thought maybe it could be nice to let it stay in 3 civil actions, and maybe, or even more importantly, is that the wave of nationalism stays in 2 civil actions. So I didn't really want to take any of those cards. Then I draw 3 cards, 2 wars, interestingly. Danny Boy seeds, and the ball conflict is revealed, so sadly I get hit by a strength event here. Danny Boy gets a bit of a resource boost, so I definitely wasn't happy about it. And Danny Boy will switch to Bach already this turn. Could maybe keep Nostradamus for longer, but he wants to go for the drama already. He wants to maybe get a nice culture lead, builds 2 dramas, goes up to 9 culture reduction, and also starts upgrading to his irrigations. In 2 turns he can get another population out. Like this, you will let the cannon stay on 2 civil actions, but there are some interesting yellow cards to take. So yeah, let's see what I will do at my turn. I definitely want to go for Shakespeare. I just think I'm very nicely set up for him. And with Gunny in the game, as I said in the beginning, I don't want to go for something military heavy. I mean, I have some wars in hand, but I also don't have an H2 tactic yet. So I just think going for Shakespeare should be the best here. And no. And I also kinda wanted to get this opera, also the revolutionary idea. I think for some additional science is very, very important. I thought about maybe even setting up Shakespeare this turn. For example, I could elect him now, go for the opera, but there are even some more cards that I kinda would like to take, and so I thought that maybe I can go for the opera at the next turn. And I kinda also wanted to get this wave. I am weaker, and getting those 6 additional resources might definitely be quite helpful. And then with the last civil action I will increase my population, so now I'm no longer in danger of rats. But I also didn't really expect rats any longer after Danny Boy went for upgrading his farms. And no, so 2 cards that I miss out on are the cannons and the rifleman, and especially the rifleman could be dangerous because there won't be a second copy. For the cannons there will be a second copy. If the second copy is revealed now, Danny Boy could potentially even deny it, but if he also wants to go for the rifleman, it would be quite costly. So I was hoping that I will at least still get the cannons at some point, but I might miss out on the rifleman. But I think there are so many interesting cards to take here that spending 3 civil actions in the rifleman is just too costly. And yeah, at the next turn I can then either go for operas, or what I was also kind of hoping for, maybe the ocean liner service will be revealed, and then I can also maybe just finish that, make sure that I have a lot of population going. Also, if the selective breeding is available, maybe I would rather go for that first instead of the opera, but if not, I have a bunch of free population, and just catching up in culture reduction might also not be bad. I will reveal the Legion tactic this turn, because I thought probably I also don't really want to go for that, building that many warriors, especially if I should miss out on a rifleman, but maybe I could also just keep the phalanx tactic, but at the end I thought maybe I rather want to have the Legion tactic available here. I keep one war, the Cold War, and the 2 colonization cards. I even draw 2 more colonization cards in case there's a colony in the deck. I can now bid quite a lot for it, and I also was happy to draw the mobile artillery tactic here, because now if Danny Boy should deny the rifleman, I still have a tactic that I can go for. Danny Boy will build another drama. He's now 12 culture production. He also can finish the Taj Mahal at some point, and he will take the cannons and the rifleman as well as the reserves. Now it's my turn again. There is no ocean liner service, also no selective breeding. I think already the turn before I lost my lab to the border conflict. That lab has done its job with allowing me to go for common one turn earlier, and after this I thought the population might be better elsewhere. And yeah, with none of those options available, either ocean liner service or selective breeding, I think now it's just best to start catching up in culture production, otherwise I might fall behind quite a bit. But now when I go for 2 operas, and both of those are relatively cheap, only for 5 resources with Shakespeare and the Masonry, now I will beat 32 culture after my turn, so I'm not that much behind, and that's then at least something. Our position is relatively similar. We have similar science production, resource production, culture production. I maybe have a bit more culture potential if I manage to get another pair going, but I don't have a food solution yet. But if I manage to get the ocean liner service, then maybe that also, then maybe the food situation could be in my favor potentially. I still have 3 civil actions left now, and now the question is what to do. I could maybe just take a yellow card for 2 civil actions. The breakthrough could be quite interesting, but I came to the conclusion that I want to have this justice system here. I want to have it for myself, but it's also a bit of a hate draft, and I just thought that might be one advantage that I want to secure for myself, having more civil actions, and I will actually go for the justice system already this turn, so that I'm at 7 civil actions, and Danny Boy, with having 13 science saved up, could have easily gone for justice system at his turn, and then we would be both at 6 civil actions. Now I have 2 civil actions more, and I thought that definitely could be a nice advantage that might help me maybe at some point. That Danny Boy will now be locked down on 5 civil actions for a while. And so I was willing to go take the justice system. With taking it, I also kind of wanted to develop it. It's a little bit greedy, because I don't have the most science production and also not the most science left. I at least built 1 more printing press with Shakespeare now to get more science production going. Like this, I have at least enough science to threaten to go for military technology that potentially could be important. And yeah, but if I want to go for selective breeding, then the science might get relatively close if I also want to get cavalrymen and cannons for the mobile artillery. But I was kind of hoping that I rather get the ocean liner service than the selective breeding. And the 7th civil action will also maybe help with the ocean liner service, because if that will be available for 3 civil actions at the next turn, or at a 3 civil action area, I would have to take it for 4. And then I could still finish it with using the engineering genius if I want to use it, even if it is in this area. So having the 7th civil action going now might also help me with just getting the ocean liner service going as quickly as possible. And yeah, I miss out sadly on those yellow cards, and I mean those are quite nice for Danny Boy. Breakthrough, engineering genius for the Taj Mahal, but at least he has a bit of a hand space issue, not the most, because he still has the library, and he probably can also just develop rifleman or something with the breakthrough, so he probably can relatively easily take some cards. I didn't like it too much, but I still went for this turn with taking the justice system. I keep all of the colonization cards and the tactic in hand, and I draw another tactic, the Napoleonic army, but with having missed out on the rifleman, the mobile artillery will probably be the better one for me. Danny Boy opens the strategic territory, so there's actually a colony in there. The question is, of course, do I want to send my colonization cards away for that, or do I maybe want to hope for a better colony? But with me having Isabella earlier, I kind of thought that I shouldn't really expect too many colonies, and also when I want to go for the mobile artillery tactic at some point, then I don't really need this warrior anyway, so sending it away for a colony now might be quite nice. So I was willing to bid a warrior, and I think all of my cards, maybe also only 2 cards at the end, I have to send away 2 cards and win the strategic territory. Danny Boy then goes for the rifleman, makes space in his hand, makes sure to get a bit stronger, takes the breakthrough, takes the engineering genius, builds 1 step of the Taj Mahal, so at the next turn he can finish the Taj Mahal relatively cheaply with the engineering genius. Now I was really hoping that the Ocean Liner service will be available, or if not, maybe at least the selective breeding, but I was really hoping a lot more for the Ocean Liner service, because if I go for the selective breeding, I definitely might get some issues with my science. And yeah, so I was hoping that it will be revealed. But yeah, sadly no Ocean Liner service, also no selective breeding, and that definitely could get a little bit problematic if my food, if getting more population out will be delayed by that much. The question is what to do now. I can't do that much on my civilization, so I mainly just have to take some cards, and I definitely wanted to have the strategy. Not even that importantly for myself, because if I want to go for the mobile artillery, it might take quite a while until I find enough science for the strategy, but maybe at some point I will, and maybe it will help me then defend myself. But it's more important maybe to take it away from Danny Boy, because Danny Boy, after he will finish the Taj Mahal, has for the moment maybe reached his culture ceiling, or his maximum that he can go for at the moment. And with that, he might make a switch to the military. He has cannons in hand, has knights in hand. If I believe him the strategy with the breakthrough, he has even enough science to go for cannons and strategy immediately if he has defensive army or something like this. Or also Napoleonic army. Or actually, I have Napoleonic army, but if he has a tactic that he can go for, maybe also fortifications, then stuff could get dangerous relatively quickly. And I thought it is very important that I am not disrupted now at my next 2 turns, or at my next turn, and so I thought it is very important to take the strategy away here just for safety reasons. And then I also came to the conclusion that I have to take the cavalryman here. Of course, you could say I don't have to take the cavalryman, I can just take it for 1 civil action at the next turn. I also thought about maybe just taking reserves or patriotisms for 3 civil action, taking the cavalryman at the next turn. But again, I was hoping to get the Ocean Liner service, and at the next turn I thought I should have good chances to get it, because Danny Boy still can take it away with having the Taj Mahal, and there will be not that many H2 cards left in the deck at my next turn. And if I take the Ocean Liner service, I ideally want to finish it immediately. And with doing so, I might really not have a lot of free civil actions at the next turn, so I thought it might be better to already have the cavalryman in hand, so that I can maybe just take and finish the Ocean Liner service potentially with using the Engineering Genius, and so that I'm not limited with having to grab the cavalryman for 1 civil action. Then the question is what to do with my last 2 civil actions, and I wasn't too happy about my options here. I could maybe just take the efficient upgrade, but then the last civil action, what should I do with that? I could maybe develop the cavalryman. That was something that I thought about, taking efficient upgrade, developing the cavalryman. But in case the Ocean Liner service is not available, then maybe it could still be nice to have the selective breeding option open, and I spend 6 science now on the cavalryman. That won't be an option. But I was definitely hoping very much for the Ocean Liner service, so that was definitely 1 turn that I considered. But at the end, I made a decision to go for a bit of a greedy route, and that looks like this. I will go for destroying the HA lab and building yet another theater. Of course, that is very greedy, but in 2-player games, greediness is rewarded very often. And I was hoping that I'm just now still able to get everything done that I want to do. Because at the next turn, as I said, I was really hoping to maybe just take and finish Ocean Liner service. With taking the strategy away, I was hoping that Danny Boy can't go for anything threatening immediately, so that he can't, for example, go for a war, and an aggression of course also not. So I hopefully have 1 more turn in peace where I can finish the Ocean Liner service. Then I would get 1 population from the Ocean Liner service. The next turn, another one in 2 turns, meaning in 2 turns, I will have 2 population out, and I will have exactly 12 signs available, meaning that I have just everything that I need to set up 1 mobile artillery tactic. And with that, I was hoping that I have a reasonable way to defend myself. And this opera will just produce me a lot of culture. It will produce me 5 culture this turn, but also the next turn. If I don't do this turn, then I probably won't be able to build an opera at the next turn. So also at the next turn, that will produce me 5 additional culture. That's already 10 additional culture. And while I have some issues, while my position is a little bit fragile, I was at least hoping that with producing that much culture now, maybe I can get a little bit of a lead. And if I then should manage to stabilize myself with the plan that I told to you, then I was Just hoping that after this, after maybe having this one tactic, after having the ocean liner service, that then I hopefully will be in quite a nice position. So it's a bit greedy, but greediness is often rewarded in two-player games, and at the end I just liked it more than just grabbing the efficient upgrade and developing the cavalryman. But my position is definitely very fragile right now. If there's a reign of terror or something like this, losing a population would be very annoying right now. Dark Ages, which I didn't really expect to be in there with Danny Boy having that much science saved up, but if those are available I can't go for the two technologies, cavalryman and cannons, and so yeah. My position is fragile, and I was definitely worried about potential things that could happen, but if I should survive the next 2 turns, I was hoping that after this I hopefully will be able to stabilize myself, or my position. And then I draw some cards, and terrorism has maybe some potential. Arms industry could be helpful maybe if I really need some additional resources. Danny Boy seeds, and I was unhappy to see this vast territory. I was a bit surprised by that, because I had Isabella, but I mean Danny Boy went for this fighting man tactic, and with that was relatively nicely prepared to bid for it. Maybe he's also drawn some colonization card, but sadly with having won the strategic territory I have no unit at the moment, meaning that I can't make him pay or something like this. I also can't win this for myself, so sadly Danny Boy can just take it for one warrior, and that's definitely quite a nice deal, which I was not too happy about. At least no strength event, so I know now that the last event will be the Crusades, so hopefully I won't get disrupted. The Crusades is of course also not great, but it won't disrupt me, which is at the moment quite important. Danny Boy finishes the Taj Mahal now, it's the last possible moment for him. He goes for one upgrade to Rifleman, increases his population, develops the cannons, builds one cannon already, reveals the defensive army tactic is now at 15 strength. I was definitely worried about it, because he could potentially go for a war the next turn, but also an aggression could be very disrupting. So he put some pressure now on me, which I think is definitely the right decision for him. And yeah. The good news is the ocean liner service is in the road. The bad news is that the cannons are right behind the ocean liner service. And if I take the ocean liner service, then I would miss out the cannons, so that caused some issues. And no, I was still happy to get the ocean liner service, but I was hoping that maybe the cannons could just be a little bit more behind, so that I can don't have to take it now at my next turn. This turn I could potentially just skip on my politics phase, then I still know that the Crusades are on top, so I know that there is no disrupting event on top. On the other hand, I was thinking that this terrorism has some potential. Of course, I have a lot of culture production, I'm starting to catch up, but Danny Boy will always produce his culture before me, so at my turn I was hoping that Danny Boy will have more culture production. And so I was hoping that I have a decent chance to win the terrorism. It's definitely not completely certain, but I kind of wanted to have one event in the next deck so that Danny Boy doesn't have the full knowledge about it. And I didn't like the other events too much. I have 2 colonization cards for the developed territory, but I will have cavalrymen and cannons, so maybe it could also be a bit expensive. The arms industry I thought about, because if I go for cavalryman and cannon, then the 4 additional resources that I then would get might definitely help me, but Danny Boy would also gain 4 resources, and I wasn't completely certain if yet which player will benefit more from the additional resources. Definitely didn't want to see the strength event. And the terrorism has some is definitely dangerous. I could lose the opera, but then I was hoping at least I can rebuild it relatively cheaply with Shakespeare. Of course, that was not what I was hoping that it would not happen. And yeah, Danny Boy, of course, at the moment has only dramas, but at least he would lose 1 civil action if he has to rebuild it. Still 4 resources, and I was hoping that I can maybe make this terrorism work, because I will now miss out on the selective breeding if I take ocean liner service and cannons, meaning I might have some famine issues, and I could even use the famine maybe to win the terrorism. Then at least I don't have to fix it, and can maybe build more units to stabilize myself more. I lose some culture, but at least that might then allow me to win the terrorism. So I, at the end, was willing to see this terrorism into the deck. And of course, one important thing is that the Crusades are on top. So I, at the moment, would be already overtake Danny Boy right now, but with the Crusades I will be a bit behind, so that made me more confident that I will win the terrorism. It's still not completely certain, but with the Crusades I was hoping that now I might have a chance to win the terrorism. and I wanted to have event in there that has a potential upside and just also makes it that Danny Boy doesn't have the full knowledge about the event deck. This turn I want to go for the Ocean Liner service. I also want to finish the Ocean Liner service, but with also having to take the cannons, I have to sadly finish it without the Engineering Genius. At least it is possible. It's important to get the population going now, and then I just have to take the cannons. I think that's just what I have to do here. And at the next turn I can develop cavalrymen and cannons, play the wave, and with that I can go for one mobile artillery tactic. And there could still be some disruptive events like Reign of Terror. Losing a population could be annoying, but at least that would mean that anybody doesn't go for any wars or aggressions, especially in aggression I was afraid of, because I don't have enough colonization cards to defend. At least if I draw only one more card, then I would be able to defend, so I still have some hope to maybe defend. And but again, I'm in a fragile position. If I get disrupted right now, I definitely could get into trouble. If I manage to stabilize myself, then I thought I might have quite a nice position. I also used my free military action this turn to reveal the mobile artillery tactic, so to get more draws in at the next turn. Danny Boy doesn't want to go for this tactic anyway. He has to reveal the defensive army this last turn, so I'm not really helping him. I only give him the knowledge that I have this tactic, but he probably has to think about that I have either fortifications or mobile artillery anyway, so I don't think I should hide it. I draw 3 cards, sadly no colonization card, meaning, but there are also not that many left, with already having sent away 2 for the strategic territory. That means that I am vulnerable to an aggression. At least I draw 1 infiltrate. Because of that, could of course be one of the worst aggressions. Losing Shakespeare here could definitely be quite a disaster. So maybe that makes it at least a bit less likely that anybody will go for that aggression. H3 will start, and Danny Boy doesn't go for an aggression. He will go for a war with territory, which is of course also bad, but I think some of the aggressions could have been even worse, so it's bad, but maybe not as bad as it maybe even could have been. He goes for 1 more cannons, is now at 18 strength, takes the organized religion, takes the reserves, and takes the urban growth. At my turn, I again made a decision to cede. There could be a disruptive event, and I was definitely afraid of that. On the other hand, I also thought I kind of want to push to get this terrorism out in time, before I maybe again overtake Danny Boy in culture. So I wanted to just continue seeding, and I at this point seeded the developed territory into the deck. I don't know yet who gets the Hollywood, and whoever gets the Hollywood maybe benefits more from the armaments industry, so I still didn't want to push that into the deck. I didn't want to push the Ravages of Time into the deck, and so I just seeded the developed territory. I have still 2 colonization cards, the science could be quite helpful for me, and I was very happy to see that there's no disruptive event. Maybe it was a little bit too risky seeding here, but it could also be nice to see the terrorism revealed relatively quickly. So both of the players gain 3 additional science, and I have a relatively clear defense. I play the wave, I go for both of those technologies, and then I will build 1 army, meaning I'm at 13 strength. That sadly means that I will still lose 2 yellow tokens. That's definitely quite hurtful, and with me not having any farm upgrades that I can go for, I will definitely have some famine issues at my next turn. So it's not ideal. I could of course destroy something, build a warrior to at least only lose 1 yellow token, but I don't really have anything that I want to destroy. Maybe I could think about destroying a printing press and then building a warrior and then rebuilding the printing press for 3 with Shakespeare at the next turn. But I wasn't willing to do this, and because I also have some interesting cards to take. And one of those ghost cards is the reserves. That could help me with the resource, but also maybe to play it for food to avoid famine. For that it also could be quite helpful. And if I would destroy the printing press now, then I would miss out on this last 1 card, and I thought it could be an important one, the organized religion. I will lose 2 yellow tokens now. If I will lose Shakespeare at some point, I will definitely need a new happy face solution. There's no Marlene, there is no chaplain. And there's only 1 copy of Pro Sports, so I thought having this organized religion in hand is quite important. That means I will lose 2 yellow tokens, which is definitely not ideal, but at least I can now defend against an aggression again, so I have a bit stabilized now. Danny Boy will steal those 2 yellow tokens, He will go for the computers, so he wants to go for some science upgrades. Maybe he's even eyeing Sid Meier, or potentially maybe also waiting for Bill Gates. And of course it will be nice for some impacts. So he goes for those computers, but I was actually very happy to see this, because that means now that the terrorism will have quite a big potential now, destroying his lab for 11 resources. So no, I was happy to see it. Then he grabs the multimedia. Interestingly, he didn't go for the multimedia. He could have also just built one more. Actually not. He doesn't have a free population. So because of that, he probably went for the computers. Maybe also because of the synergies with the leaders. So now he takes the multimedia. Maybe doesn't want to leave that to me. I could maybe start upgrading to it. And also that makes it sure that he also has the option to go for some more cultures. Maybe also eyeing Fleming, who is coming down the row. And of course also his knowledge about the Hollywood. Now it's my turn and I will see the impact of wonders. I was just hoping to the terrorism that it will be revealed as quickly as possible, and I have also a way to make sure that I hopefully, if it is not revealed immediately, have still chances to win it, because at the moment, of course, now after I got 3 culture for seeding, I will be at 112 culture after my turn, and with that I of course would have less culture, a lot more culture than Danny Boy, so at his turn I could lose to the terrorism. However, one of the turns that I considered for my turn will include having famine, and if I lose 4 culture to famine, then I would have only 108 culture, meaning if Danny Boy seeds, and even if it is only an H2 event, he would also be at 108. At his turn, he would win the tiebreaker, which would mean he is considered to have more culture, meaning that I would be able to still win the terrorism, and then after his turn, he would again have production. And so, yeah, I was hoping that I like to still have a nice chance to win the terrorism, and I just wanted to get it out now as quickly as possible to be able to destroy this computer. And I also get lucky here that terrorism is revealed immediately, so now I not even necessarily have to go for a famine turn. And yeah, that is just quite a big swing here now. It gives me quite a big value. I was very happy that I've seeded it into the deck. Sometimes it is worth it to take some risks, and Danny Boy has just lost the computers that he invested into. He has no engineering, no architecture. He has the potential to go for engineering, but still, that is a lot of value that he loses here. If he wants to rebuild it, he has to spend a lot of resources, another civil action. If he doesn't rebuild it, then he has basically spent the 8 science for the computers for nothing, or for only 1 production. So that's very annoying for him, and I was quite happy about it. This turn I can get a population from the Ocean Liner service, and I think what I have to do is to grab the Hollywood here. In a culture game like this, I think the player who has the Hollywood has definitely an advantage, because in case the game stays peaceful, I just have a lot better chances with having the Hollywood. So with that, I'm kinda pushing Danny Boy into a military direction. I thought about doing a turn. I definitely wanted to build 1 unit in any case, using 1 free military action. The next turn I can build another one, and like this I don't miss out on any draws, and maybe at the next turn I can then even get stronger. And I thought about just playing the reserves for food now to not have famine, and then I could maybe take the patriotism to help with the military. But what I think is even more important, especially now that I went for the Hollywood and, as I said, maybe pushed my opponent into a military direction, I wanted to take this military theory away, because like this Danny Boy is still stuck at 3 military actions, meaning he can't easily go for building up military and drawing cards. He can't easily declare war. Of course, he might still get either communism or fundamentalism, but that will make it a lot harder now. I was hoping that to pull off a war, and I felt a lot safer. Of course, like this I can't play the reserves for food. I will have famine, but I was willing to take the famine here. At least it basically saves me 1 food. If I then play the reserves for food at the next turn, maybe the food will last a little bit longer to avoid a famine then. Then I draw some cards. The impact of population might be fine. Also, I've already seeded the impact of wonder, so I was quite happy that I have some seedable impacts drawn. Also, when we take a look at the culture, now that we are in the beginning of H3, we can see that the culture is very close now. I have a slight lead. I have a bit better production. I have the Hollywood now, so I was feeling relatively nice now, with also having taken away the military theory now. I thought that might not be that easy for Danny Boy to find a nice solution to stay into the game. Either he goes all into military. If he gets the fundamentalism relatively quickly, things might still get quite dangerous for me. But yeah, in general, I was relatively happy about my position. One issue is, of course, that I still have those famine issues. That's a problem. And yeah, but I was now, I got punished a bit with Greater Warver territory, but I still think I have now somewhat stabilized, and I was relatively happy about my position now. Danny Boy will play the reserves resources, and he will actually rebuild his computer, so that indeed it just cost him 11 resources and a civil action, this terrorism, which is of course an insane amount of the damage done by just an event card. So yeah, that is very costly. Maybe you could have just not rebuilt it. Maybe you're going for multimedia and flaming to or continue with going for culture reduction. But the only wonder left is the Red Cross, and just going a peaceful way here is maybe not the way to go. Maybe you could have just gone immediately all in into military. Maybe you should take the fundamentalism here, just already make it certain that he has the tools to still maybe go for a military push. But yeah, he is now in a situation where it's a bit difficult to find a nice way to, yeah, to still get into a winning position. And then he takes the efficient upgrade. The patriotism is maybe eyeing Bill Gates, so that's maybe a reason why he still wants to have those computers. Next turn he can maybe upgrade this one, and then he can maybe get Bill Gates going. This turn I seeded again. Of course I'm weaker, but I thought now that I have the Hollywood, and now that maybe again Danny Boy maybe has to try something with the military, I wanted to have those arms industry resources to potentially help me in case there will be a war. The freedom of movement is revealed. I can use that to put a farm into the cavalryman, because this turn I wanted to go for mechanized agriculture anyway. It's a bit costly, especially because of the science, and might prevent me from going for military theory or strategy. But still, without it, I just have a lot of famine issues. Playing reserves for food helps for some time, but especially when I get into the next area of the yellow bank, then I will have some big issues. So I yeah, wanted to go for mechanized agriculture anyway, but I don't really need a second farm, so I can put this into the military, and saving those resources might also be quite nice. And with my last 3 civil actions, I then grabbed the military build-up. I also thought about denying the fundamentalism, but then there would still be the communism left. Of course, I could also not go for mechanized agriculture, maybe denying fundamentalism and communism, but then I spend that much on those denials that maybe I open the door for Danny Boy to go for some peaceful options again, and then he might take the mechanized agriculture away for one civil action. He should definitely do it, and maybe he can still go for the Red Cross, and I can't really build any stages without having the mechanized agriculture, and I will have some big famine issues. Maybe it could still be worth it to deny him any military options. And maybe it could still be worth it to just take the fundamentalism, but I rather wanted to have the military build-up. I thought the resources are maybe more important for myself. Danny Boy has now the potential to declare war, go for fundamentalism, and then maybe 2 riflemen, maybe even a bit more with the freedom of movement. He can't go for fundamentalism and air forces. If he goes for fundamentalism, 2 units and gets another tactic, he will get plus 18 strength, will be at 36. But thanks to the military build-up, I can now threaten. I have 12 resources in my hand. I have 8 saved up at my next turn, so I have just 20. So I can just threaten to go for 2 more armies. Of course, it would cause corruption, but I would win the war if he goes for one. And with that, I felt relatively safe, and I just thought those additional resources from the military build-up might be quite important to have, and I rather wanted to have those than denying the fundamentalism, because then Danny Boy could still go for the communism, or maybe pull off a war with going for the patriotism at some point, somehow. No. But also just denying fundamentalism and communism could be an interesting option, but then I might have a lot of food issues, so I left the door open here for Danny Boy to maybe still go for a war, but I was hoping that for the next turn I'm safe enough, and that it also hopefully isn't that easy for Danny Boy to set up for yeah, just a very big war. I do draw some cards, another impact that is playable, which is nice, and also 2 more colonization cards, which might help me to win the developed territory potentially. And Danny Boy is still going for war, but it's not a normal war, it's actually a hybrid war. He uses the freedom of movement to put a lab into the religion. He goes for the fundamentalism, he will play the patriotism, goes for Bill Gates, destroys the mine, goes for 2 units, is now at 36 strength. And the hybrid was of course a bit of a problem because now I have some happy face issues, so now it would really cause a lot of destruction if I want to go for 2 more armies. And I was not willing to destroy that much, but first of all I seeded something into the deck. I was afraid of what event might be on top, especially refugees might be quite bad. I was also happy that the freedom of movement was revealed earlier, not anything bad like refugees. I was still quite afraid of refugees because that might mean I have to destroy one thing more. But I was also a bit afraid of a second war from Danny Boy. Not that much, I was afraid of it. And I thought it is very important to, if he goes for that war, be able to seed again at the next turn to then have a shot at either getting the arms industry or even the developed territory might also help me. And so I was willing to seed also. I have yet another impact in hand, so if I don't seed, maybe I miss out on seeding one of the impacts into the deck if I get enough that are nice for me. And so I seed and I don't really get punished. Of course, the international agreement might still be nice for Danny Boy, but the issue is he has only 2 politics phases left, and if he uses one of those, it is definitely, for this international agreement, it is definitely a bit of a cost. My turn I was not willing to go for a lot of destruction, and so I kinda have to go for this organized religion. I don't have enough science to go for professional sports. With the military buildup, I would have now exactly 10 resources, so my first idea was to maybe play the reserves for food, increase my population one time normally, one time with the ocean liner service, play the military buildup, build 2 units, then I would be at 35 strength, I would only lose the war by a little bit, and I don't have to destroy anything, then I could also take the reserves. So that felt like a relatively clean turn, but there was one issue that I was having with this turn. And that issue is that with having the reserves, I would be able to go for yet another army at the next turn. Danny Boy now could potentially go for a war with air forces, which would put him at 47 if I end my turn at 35, and then I threaten to go for another army, then I would be at 46. So if he goes for a normal war next, then with going for this relatively clean turn, he could win a war by 1 strength. There is the chance that I could win the arms industry, but it's only a 50-50 shot. If I don't win it, then I might end up being in a losing war. And I didn't like this, because I kinda might still want to defend. Maybe I could not defend, but then the war gets bigger. Or I do defend, but then I might not have enough resources left to finish the Hollywood. And that I thought might be quite bad for me and might be a way how I can lose this game. So I wanted to play a turn where ideally I am relatively safe from a war for the next turn. And for that I kinda needed those reserves for resources. So I increase my population only with the ocean liner service. I play the military buildup. I destroy 1 mine to build those 2 units. So of course I miss out on some production from the mines now. I thought about just taking reserves and revolutionary idea. But then there's the potential that, if I remember it correctly, then there's the potential that Danny Boy could just end the age while going for war. He could develop air force, increase his population, the hybrid war will be over, so the population will be happy. Then he has 4 civil actions left. He has 3 hand space or even 4 spaces in hand free with the library, and then he could take 2 cards for 1 civil action and 1 card for 2 civil actions and the age. And that could be a bit problematic, because I would lose Shakespeare, and that has some issues. And so I didn't want to take reserves and revolutionary. I definitely wanted to take the reserves. And I wanted to find a solution here where I can just guaranteed go for enough strength that if Danny Boy goes for a war with just building 1 air force, that I at least can tie the war, or ideally even win it. And the solution that I found for this was to play the reserves for resources now that I already had in hand, destroy library, and build this warrior. Of course, it is a bit costly to destroy this printing press. It costs me 3 culture reduction. However, the warrior is also a 2 culture swing now in the war. And at the next turn, now that I don't take reserves and revolutionary idea, I'm guaranteed to still have Shakespeare. And with that, I can just rebuild this for free at the next turn, in case I don't need a population elsewhere, in case there is still a war going on against me or something like that. But if not, what I was hoping for, then I can just rebuild it for free, and I miss out on 3 culture reduction, but I get a 2 culture swing for the war, and at the next turn hopefully I will just be able to rebuild it for free. And now, with having this warrior, I am prepared to win the war with both of those events that would be revealed. There could either be arms industry, then I would have 14 resources, and I could build 2 more units and a warrior, which would allow me to win the war by 1 strength. Or if the developed territory is revealed, then I could send away the warrior for it. That should be enough to win it, because Danny Boy would lose quite a bit of strength if he tries to win this colony. And I have a bunch of colonization cards in hand, so I hopefully would be able to win it for just a warrior, and that's also the main reason why I built this warrior now. And then I would win the developed territory. I still have enough resource to go for another army, and thanks to the science from the developed territory, I could develop the strategy, which then again would be enough to win a war if Danny Boy just goes for an air force, and he can't really go for a lot more. The only thing how I could go for more is if he has the positional army drawn, because then he could go for an air force, reveal the positional army, and then he would get 6 more strength from the tactic compared from staying on defensive army, and then stuff could definitely get dangerous, so that was the main danger I was afraid of here. But if he doesn't have this tactic, then there shouldn't be any. If he goes for a war, of course, he doesn't have knowledge about those events. But now with having the warrior, I should still be able to tie for the war, even without those events. But with those events, I could even win the war. And if I win the war, I was hoping that should be enough to win. If he doesn't go for war, then I should be able to finish the Hollywood. I have, with the arms industry, I should have enough resources to finish the Hollywood at the last turn, not at the next turn. That is an option I take away from myself, but I thought if I'm in a situation where I can finish the Hollywood, it is still nice even if I finish it without the Shakespeare bonus at my last turn, because Danny Boy can't go for any wonder any longer. So that was the turn, and now I was interested to see if Danny Boy will go for a war, and I was even more interested to see if he has the positional army, because that could definitely be dangerous. Then I might be a bit into trouble. I draw the mechanized army tactic. Sadly, I don't have enough resource. I'm missing 1 resource, even if the arms industry is revealed, to build 3 cannons and reveal the tactic. But still nice maybe to have it in hand. No culture is stolen from the hybrid draw, but it definitely disrupted me, so might still be nice for Danny Boy, but of course he also invested something into it. And he doesn't go for a war. I was very happy to see it. He instead reveals the arms industry. We both gain 4 additional resources. He will go for the civil service. Maybe he has some nice impacts for that. Maybe he wants to have the additional civil action. He isn't using the international agreement. Probably he has some nice impacts that he wants to get into the deck. And then he takes the endowment and the revolutionary idea. But with him not going for a war, I can just play the game out peacefully. And with having the Hollywood, I hopefully will have quite a nice advantage now. I again was willing to see the impact of population should be relatively nice for me. The developed territory is revealed. I am able to win it for just 1 warrior, which is nice. Then I can increase my population with the ocean liner service. I definitely want to build this printing press for 3 as long as I still have Shakespeare. And then I thought about some different options. I thought about maybe if I can go for movies at the next turn, grab some yellow cards this turn. There's a second copy of movies, so I might be guaranteed to get one. However, if the second one stays in 2 civil actions, I might have some civil action issues. There are also all the remaining leaders in the row now, so I have to make a decision which one of those I want to go for. Mandela might have the biggest potential, but I have to pay some additional civil actions for him. Gandhi has produced me 2 culture. Mercury only 1 culture, but Gandhi also costs 1 more civil action. And I thought about maybe setting myself up to go for movies, but instead I made something different and I prepared myself for the impact of variety. That turn might not be the greatest in case the impact of variety is not revealed before my next turn, but if it is revealed, then it should be quite a nice turn. I go for the strategy, that gives me 2 for variety. I play the reserves for food to get another population out, build this warrior, that gives me +2 for variety. And also with developing strategy and having this warrior make it a little bit more difficult for Danny Boy to win a potential impact of strength. Now he maybe has to put some effort into that, which is maybe not ideal for him. Otherwise he could have maybe played it a bit risky, seeded the impact of strength with not increasing his strength, but now he knows that he has to go for more strength if he wants to win an impact of strength. Also with playing the reserves for food, of course maybe I take the option away from me to build something. I will have now exactly enough resource to finish the Hollywood, so I can't do a lot at my next turn. However, with playing the reserves for food, I will get one more population out, and I just seeded the impact of population in, so this turn basically gives me +4 for the impact of variety, and it gives me +2 for the impact of population. And with my last civil action, I then grabbed Marie Curie. I sadly didn't have enough civil actions left to go for Gandhi, but Marie Curie only gives 1 culture less, and at least she gives also 1 science production, which could give me potential +2 culture for when an impact of balance is in the deck, so then she might even be better than Gandhi. I also thought about turns where I go for military theory at the next turn. Of course that might be better, for example, for impact of tech, also a bit better for impact of government and progress, but Danny Boy has only seeded 1 impact so far, and I know that the impact of variety is coming and it might be revealed before my next turn. With that I rather wanted to fix my variety now, so I went for the strategy instead of waiting to go for the military theory. I still get 1 last draw in, and I was happy to, there is the impact of balance, so Marie Curie won't help for that, unless I will seed it, but it's unlikely because the impact of happiness might be even better for me. I was quite happy to draw that, because Danny Boy will lose the organized religion, so he can maybe go for 2 religions, or maybe even 3 religions or stuff, but then something like this, but then he has to destroy a lot of stuff, so the impact of happiness should be quite a decent impact to play. H4 starts, so now we have both 1 turn left, and there is indeed the impact of variety revealed, so now it was worth it to set up for this, and I gain 18 culture out of it, while Danny Boy only gets 12 out of it. He will reveal the positional army now, that is interesting. So I guess that at the turn before he maybe didn't have that yet, or maybe he didn't have a war, that of course is also a possibility. Or maybe he did have both, but was afraid of a war. But I think if he had this positional army and a war at the turn before, he probably should have gone for a war, unless I missed out on something. But it's of course definitely possible that he has just drawn this tactic after his turn. And yeah, like this he can keep 12 strength from the tactic even when he disbands something. He will go for 1 multimedia, place the endowment for 6 culture, and then can also go for the satellites. For him it was definitely an unlucky timing here that the impact of variety was revealed, not the impact of wonders, because he also increased his variety by +4, so that was a nice timing for me. And then it's my turn. I see the impact of happiness, the impact of wonders is revealed, that gives 1 culture more for Danny Boy. I then will go for Marie Curie. I can finish the Hollywood still for 24 culture, so that's still quite decent. And then I can't really do anything else. And then before the final impacts, we can see that I have a 50 culture lead. Danny Boy will get a bit of a Bill Gates bonus, but yeah, that lead should definitely be big enough. Danny Boy has only 2 impacts in there, and one of my impacts, the impact of happiness, is actually also quite a nice one for me. Then we have the impact of population, that also gives me +4 against Danny Boy. We have the impact of progress, that gives me +4 for Danny Boy against me. Then we have the impact of happiness, that gives +6 for me against Danny Boy. And the last one is actually quite a nice impact for Danny Boy, +16 for him with the impact of technology. He also gets the Bill Gates bonus, but at the end I am able to win this game. Yeah, so that at the end went relatively nicely. I thought that at the end of Age 2 my position was quite fragile, and it definitely could get into another direction if I maybe get disrupted just a little bit more. I already got disrupted with the war over technology, over territory, but if there is something like refugees in the deck that I get hit by, if there's a reign of terror, if I just lose 1 population, if I maybe start Dark Ages or something where I lose science, yeah, then I might get some huge issues. Like this, I played it greedily, but I just managed to keep my position together. I lost 2 yellow tokens, I had some issues because of that, but with being able to go for this tactic, I kinda stabilized. And then, yeah, I managed to get the Hollywood, and in games like this, that is also just very important. I also think that having those 7 civil actions definitely was a bit of an advantage. Danny Boy had 5 civil actions for quite a while, and with that I could relatively easily grab the Hollywood while also denying the military theory, for example. And once I had the Hollywood, I just thought I have now mainly make sure that I can defend myself very nicely, and then I should have good chances to win. And that at the end was then true. No, so no, maybe an example to see that greediness can definitely pay off in two-player games, but the position was definitely quite fragile, and I could have gotten punished. The terrorism, of course, was quite a big swing, was quite a disaster for Danny Boy, so that worked out very nicely for me. And yeah, there we can also see it is worth it to maybe seed events and that have some potential, even if there are some risks. And yeah, so at the end I am able to win this game, which I'm very happy about. And we can also take a quick look at the standings now. And we are now almost at the end of the stage of the tournament. Only one game is missing now. And now basically from the positions everything is clear. I have now with this win secured my first position in the group, which I'm very happy about. Daniel is in the second position, Danny Boy at the third position, Waika at the fourth position. There's now only one three-player game left, as you can see, against Daniel and Danny Boy. I hope you're still excited for this three-player game, even though you know now that there aren't any chances in the standings any longer. But there are still two reasons why this game still has some relevance, even with knowing now the standings. Of course, those standings were not known for the most part of the three-player game that we are about to see. But first of all, this game of course counts for the clicker rating, so that is of course one reason why this is still an important game. But probably even more importantly, there are some seedings for the next stage, and also already have been in this stage. So the player with the best performances won't play against each other at the next stage. And the next stage in the upper bracket, where I'm going to now that I've secured my first place, there will be a lot of strong players. But maybe the strongest players, who are at the top of the clicker rating, those definitely have shown some very strong performances in the tournament so far, so they should be in the top seed. And if I get another win in, maybe I also have a chance to be one of the top seeded players, which then would mean that I could maybe have a good chance to not meet any of the top players in the next stage. So for that, a win in the next three-player game could still be very important. So I still hope you are excited for the three-player game to come. I hope it was an interesting two-player game for you to watch. And then, yeah, thanks for watching. Have a nice time and see you in the next video.